So today I want to talk about how to get started in perfumery. This is how I got started. Again, I'm not classically trained. I'm not somebody who spent years and years doing this. I've developed this over the year and a half that I've been doing this. I developed this process myself through a lot of research, through a lot of trial and error. It is something that has warped over time and is continuing to develop. So I just thought I would share with you a little bit about what I started doing, because when I first started, I wanted to look on YouTube and couldn't really find very much. I found some stuff, but just something a little bit different than what you might see on YouTube. So probably the first important thing for me that I would say is a journal or a notebook. This is going to be integral to everything that you do. You can, I mean, even if you just write it down in a computer, but having something to write on to keep track of everything is as crucial as possible. You're gonna write down your materials you're using when you're formulating. This is where I did my studies. I'd rather do it physically than in a computer. I feel like writing it down for me is something that's a little bit better for myself, but if typing it works better for you, then that's what works better for you. But a journal of some sort is, I feel like, is a must-have. And then other than that, it's really just like your basic things that you're gonna need. So the next thing you're gonna want is a scale. This is a tiny little cheap scale that I got when I first started. As you can see, it's been around. It goes to the capacity of 0.001 grams, which is important because when you're measuring drops, if something's one drop, you wanna be able to measure to that amount. So you can, there's ones that go for this cheap, or you can buy like multi-$100 ones, like really high quality lab ones, which I will invest in eventually. But right now, this is just something that works really well for me. It's kind of janky, and the tear button doesn't work anymore, so I have to turn it on and off every time I want to redo something. But hey, it works, and I get to do it. The next thing for me is a label maker. I really use a lot of labels. As you can see, my materials here are all labeled with one of these. And that's important because when you have your material, you are gonna write down what it is and what percentage it's diluted at if you keep your stuff in dilution. I keep a lot of my materials in dilution. Sometimes you shouldn't, just because the alcohol will evaporate and it'll just kind of sit there. I typically only really do the ones that I formulate with. So some things that I don't really use as much or haven't really used, so I don't keep them as stocked up as I used to. So that's kind of one thing. And then the next thing are these bottles, dropper bottles. Some people say not to use these because, again, it can evaporate. I, again, only fill up stuff that I use often. So the evaporation on those materials aren't as heavy as some of the other ones. You can get the ones that aren't dropper and just the regular cap on it. And then you can use, which is something next I was going to talk about, is plastic pipettes. These are really nice to use, but I like having these sometimes because I like to, just have the glass. You can buy glass droppers, like just the droppers by themselves, not part of this, but I just find them really annoying to clean. This allows you to use it and not contaminate anything. So this is like a one and done. So, I don't know, I'm trying to think of different ways. I just don't like throwing away so much plastic. If I'm formulating something, some of my materials I use up to 30, 40 materials, sometimes more. So that's 30 or 40 for one fragrance. And I have quite a few. So you'll be going through quite a few of them. But for formulating when you're starting, I think these are really nice. The next thing is some sort of sample bottle, right? So you're gonna wanna put it in some sort of a sprayer, because when you dab it on a perfume, at least, it's a lot different than when it's sprayed. It aerates, it separates all those oils onto your skin. So it's a little bit different. So these are 3 ml. It's a pack of 60. I get these off Amazon. It's like 10 bucks. So that's what I keep mine in. And when they're in trial, sorry, let me grab one. I typically like to use these bottles. When they're in trial, it's 15 ml. Pretty simple, just to, do it in here. I label it, what the name of it is. In my journal, I write down the date. If you're gonna use clear bottles like I use, keep them away from the sun. The light and everything will help, you know, make it bad over time. I'm not sure how fast, but I just like to see the the development of the color and everything over time. I'm not like a designer and I try and have completely clear perfumes. I like to actually have the color, you know, shown. It shows the quality of the material that you use, and it shows the concentration as well. I think it's a nice part of the presentation. A next material will be a beaker of some sorts. When you're formulating, you know, when you're just making stuff, you're gonna use very little. So I used to formulate and right into here and do trials, but now I actually just do it right into here to save having to clean all my beakers all the time. But, you know, these are really nice to have when you're weighing things like your alcohol and stuff. Of course, I have bigger ones. I have a 1,000 milliliter one when I'm doing bigger batches. So beakers are really nice to have around. Funnels of some sort. When I buy the packs of these, they come with a funnel. And I've gotten, I don't know, I probably have like 30 funnels. But you know, when you're transferring things, it's always nice to have some funnels just to help ensure that you don't spill anything. And again, you can always use plastic pipettes, or you can get a disposable syringe and, excuse me, and you can use that, but you know, you don't want to keep using the same syringe. This is something I found to be really integral as well. It is, I call it a scooper. But when you're working with things like when I work with my labdanum, the resin, which is like really sticky and like, it's not really pourable. I can't really warm it up because it's in a plastic jar, unfortunately. So using something like this, or like Oak Moss Absolute, Mimosa comes almost like, it's almost like a gum. So working with something like this, or, you know, it saves you from having to use like a pocket knife and get that all dirty and gross. And then, alcohol, Perfumers Alcohol. If you're making a perfume, you need to have some sort of an alcohol. I don't know what else I would use. I mean, I've heard of people using vodka. I don't know that I would use vodka, but this is specifically for perfume. It's called SDA 40B. It's 200 proof. This is from Creating Perfumes. If I can figure out how to put it in a link in a description or something when I'm making this, since I'm new to it, I'll put it in there so you guys can see. But this is one of my main places I get it from. If you're gonna get more than 5 gallons a year, you have to have a license from the ATF. It's called a TTB permit, sorry, not a license, a permit. So I have a permit through the ATF to be able to get more than the 5 gallons. I think I'm allotted 50 gallons or something, but it's pretty easy to apply for. But yeah, so this is something you do. If you're just starting off doing it for fun, you definitely won't need that much. But yeah, this is integral as well. That's definitely something you need if you're gonna make perfumes. And then of course, the star of the show is the materials. I get my materials from a lot of different places. When I first started though, it was perfumersapprentice.com. I love that website. They sell in small amounts, they sell in bulk, up to like 1 kilo or sometimes I think more. And they sell sometimes they sell some things in 4 ml. So it's really small, really easy to use. I keep mine, these are all the 4 mls I've used that I keep around, you know, just in case I run out of something I need a little bit more. But, you know, it's nice to be able to buy those smaller sizes, especially when you are trialing things or just playing with things, because you don't want to spend $100 on a big bottle of something you don't know if you're ever going to use. These specifically come from creatingperfume.com. I like to go into them because they offered some materials in dilution already, which is again integral, because when you're doing things yourself and learning the first time, you're not going to want to use things at full strength until you really learn how to use them. So for instance, this is Cedronol. It came in 30 ml and it's diluted to 10% already. So all you have to do is just, you know, get a dropper, or you can even just put it in this bottle, and it's diluted with DPG, so it's not going to evaporate as fast as something that's just an alcohol. This is 15 mLs of Datalat, and you can see here it says 100%. It says it backwards. I'm not sure how to change that, but yeah. So this is at 100%. Of course, 100% does come in bigger bottles, but I typically bought a bunch of these because I thought I'd be going through them much faster. So you can get them in that size. Here I have 1 kilo of ISO Super. So I mean, you know, they do sell things in much bigger quantities as well. But just starting off, I would say go with the, you know, the 4 ml bottles if you're just gonna be playing around with things, because you're gonna dilute them anyway, so you're not gonna be going through very much. Yeah, so I think that's really important to do as well. So let's talk about materials themselves. Where to begin? I just say fuck it and go for it. That's what I did. I just jumped in. Don't make the mistake of buying fragrance oils when you see things, even if it says premium. Fragrance oils are very low quality. They're made for like soaps and candles. I would not use them in perfumes. That's the mistake that I made. I figured, I went on the website, I was like, oh, fragrance oils. Oh, well, that's what I'm trying to do. I'm trying to make a fragrance. So I bought them and I'm like, and then, you know, I learned throughout it's not a good idea. I believe some of them probably have like phthalates and stuff like that as well, which is important to read the SDS, which is a safety data sheet. It tells you exactly what's in those things, because that's important for you as a perfumer to know and to follow. I mean, a lot of people say not to, but the IFRA, which is the governing body that says, you know, this material you can use, this material you can't use. They test it to see if it's safe or not. If you look on Perfumers Apprentice, sometimes the materials, when you click on them, it'll tell you, oh, you know, this is how much you're allowed to use. It's your responsibility as a perfumer, though, to be up to date with all your materials and to know what all those levels are. So when you're giving it to friends or family, you want to make sure it's safe. You don't want somebody to get sick. You don't want somebody to get burned. And most of the time, actually, natural oils sometimes can be more toxic, like bergamot, for instance. Like real bergamot oil is what's called photosensitizing. If you have too high of a concentration, you spray it on your skin and the sun hits your skin, it'll cause a chemical burn. It's real nasty. I've never seen it myself, but I can imagine it's probably not the funnest thing in the world. So again, you want to be careful of those different kinds of levels and things. So with Perfumers Apprentice, you can go not only buy smaller amounts, but you click on one of the materials, and it gives you a description of the material. Like ambroxan, it'll say ambery like ambergris, and then it'll give you the quantities on the bottom and how much it costs per quantity. So it's just an easier way to be like, okay, well, maybe I want to make something ambery. So maybe I'll get some ambroxan, maybe I'll get some ambercore, or maybe I'll get something else of that line. They do also have some pre-made accords, which are synthetic materials, aroma chemicals that are pre-manufactured by them, say for rose or jasmine. They even have their recipes. So if you go look up their key accords, is what they call them, there's a place where you can click and actually see their formula. So I think that's also really cool for learning the perfumery as well. So that's another cool feature that I think I really like about Perfumers Apprentice. Creating perfume is probably my second most widely used one when I first started. They have a different selection. They kind of do the same thing. You click on the material, it'll show you, you know, what it is, how to use it. It'll show you its physical properties, you know, what's the boiling point, what's the chemical structure, how long does it last on its scent strip. They'll tell you IFRA compliance as well sometimes. So to start with, I think it'd be best if you were to just go into either of those websites and just start reading, just start clicking, finding things that you want to use and read about them. I mean, there's like limonene and citronellol, geraniol, probably the most common ones used in perfumery. I have a box. The cool thing about getting into perfumery as well is, I'm not going to show you what this is. I'm sure you might be able to know already though, but here you'll see the ingredients. By law, it has to state allergens. So it's not going to give you the whole thing. It's not going to tell you exactly what's in the perfume itself, but it'll give you an idea of some things. Like it's always going to say alcohol. It's always going to say parfum. So parfum is the stuff that falls under that's not regulated. So they don't have to give away the recipe essentially. And the cool the interesting thing about this is that even though they put something like limonene, you know, you can't just take all these ingredients and mix them together and think you're gonna make that fragrance. You know, just because in there doesn't mean it's in a higher concentration, a lower concentration. I mean, you really have no idea. A lot of these things are found in natural materials as well, like citronellol and geraniol are found heavily in rose. So they may not be using citronellol and geraniol separately. They may be using real rose, which is why they have to state that it is citronellol and geraniol. But again, it's interesting to be able to see these materials and to kind of familiarize yourself with some of these things that they're doing it with. And it's always interesting too to see, like, you'll see a fragrance that's wood heavy, that's maybe spicy, and you'll see it has lemony and citral. You're like, well, those things smell sour like citrus. Like, why is it in there? So that's when you kind of get to learn as well, like what the use of them is. Because, you know, a lot of these materials sometimes do other things as well. They support different characteristics and different facets. So that's kind of like a way to begin. My cat is destroying all my stuff. And just having fun with it. You can't, you know, get mad at yourself over it. The first, like, I think like 30 or 40 trials I did, they were just terrible. I have them still. I like to go back to them to literally smell my progress. It's really cool to be able to see, well, I did this like almost 2 years ago, and now this is what I'm making now. It's like night and day. Of course, I've spent all day, every day, even at my day job when I worked in the emergency room, I was still, you know, if I had downtime, I was on my computer and I was typing, you know, I was looking up different materials. I was looking up things and researching things almost on a constant basis. When I got home, what was I doing? Immediately went to my table and started mixing all my materials. And then I think another thing people ask about is, how do you know what to make? Well, what do you want? It all depends on you. You could make a simple fragrance with 1 or 2 notes or materials, or you can make a really complex one. Of course, as a beginner, I would suggest doing something very simple to start with, like learning individual notes. Excuse me. So if you don't want to use, say, bergamot, the oil, you want to learn how to make something with bergamot. Bergamot is really citrusy. It's a little bit woody, and it's floral as well. So I think just playing with those aspects with something that's citrusy is just fun, and learn how to build different accords. Accords are really important in modern perfumery, as what I believe is that most modern perfumes are centered around accords and aroma chemicals, and then little bits of natural stuff can be added to accentuate those parts. I do it the opposite. I try and do as much natural as possible. Not that I'm trying to be all natural. I just think, well, natural materials are really complex. They're really beautiful in their own right. Why not use them? So I use natural materials in high dosages, and then use aroma chemicals as a base to help support those things, because a lot of natural materials don't last very long on the skin or just in general. So that's kind of what helps, what that is used for. So I think just learning the individual materials is probably the best place to start. Studying. In a previous video, I talked about doing studies of your materials, diluting your materials down to 10% or sometimes 1%, learning the tenacity, and then dropping them on a scent strip, smelling them, writing it down, and then coming back an hour later to smell it, write it down, and then come back 24 hours later and smell it and write it down. So you have to learn how these materials develop over time when they're in a material. And then you want to start just playing with the chords and mixing things together and see how they react. Yeah, so I think that's pretty much a good place to start. That's a lot of homework to go through. Again, I'll try and put these things in there. Hopefully I can figure it out, because I'm not very expert at doing YouTube videos yet. But I will try and put stuff in links. I'll try and put stuff here. I'll try and make it more visually appealing. But yeah, I think that's it. Again, like, subscribe. One thing I will say is that I think it's really important to have patience with this. It's not an overnight process. It's not going to happen quickly. It's going to take time. It's going to take time to develop your nose, your palate, the skill, the materials. I didn't get all these materials overnight. So you need to learn to be patient and be nice with yourself, and know that you're going to fail. And that's okay, because failure is just another way of succeeding, to show, well, this is what I did. It didn't turn out. So now you know how not to do it, or what not to put in things. So I think that's a really important aspect to understand. Please like and subscribe if you can. Comment below what things you would like to see, would like me to talk about. I have different little ideas of things I want to do. I'll do like a series of just materials, one material, and just talking about that one material. Other processes, eventually I get into like formulating and different things like that. But just let me know what you guys want to see, and I'll try and put out videos weekly, if not more. You know, running a business by myself, I don't have a lot of time, but I want to try and set aside some time for education, because that's what I got into Perfumery to begin with, is the education aspect of it. So I want to be able to share that kind of stuff with you guys. So let me know what you want to see, and I can't wait to see you guys again.